She was born in a house with no heating, no private school, no rich parents, no powerful last name, no inheritance waiting for her, just a small room, an old bed, and a mother who worked until her hands cracked from exhaustion, every night, while other children were dreaming about toys, vacations, and birthday gifts. She was listening to adults whisper about rent, debt, unpaid bills, and food that had to last one more week. Her name was Elena, and for most of her life, the world treated her like she was invisible. But years later, the same woman who once counted coins before buying bread, would sit in silent rooms with billionaires, presidents, bankers, and CEOs, and make them obey her without raising her voice. Not because she had more money than them, not because she owned factories, oil fields, or banks, but because she understood something the rich feared more than poverty. She understood their secrets, and secrets are sometimes more powerful than money. Elena grew up in one of the poorest parts of the city. Her neighborhood was the kind of place rich people only saw from car windows, if they ever saw it at all. Broken sidewalks, old buildings, children playing near trash containers, mothers carrying shopping bags with tired eyes, men standing outside factories, hoping someone would hire them for the day. Elena's father left when she was young. Nobody knew where he went. Nobody asked after a while. Her mother cleaned offices at night. The offices belonged to companies whose owners earned more in 1 hour than Elena's mother earned in a month. Sometimes, when her mother could not find someone to watch her, Elena went with her. She would sit quietly in the corner while her mother cleaned glass tables, polished floors, and emptied trash bins filled with papers that looked more expensive than their entire apartment. And that was where Elena first saw the world of the rich. Not from the front door, from the trash. She saw printed emails, meeting notes, invitations to private events, lists of investors, numbers, names, contracts. At first, she did not understand them, but she noticed something strange. The rich spoke a different language. They did not say problem. They said risk. They did not say firing workers. They said restructuring. They did not say greed. They said growth. And Elena learned early that language was a weapon. The poor used words to survive. The rich used words to hide. At school, Elena was quiet. Teachers thought she was shy. Students thought she was strange. But she was not shy. She was studying people. She watched how the popular girls lied with smiles, how the boys acted brave when they were scared, how teachers treated rich students differently, how adults respected confidence more than truth. Elena learned that people did not always follow the smartest person. They followed the person who sounded certain. That lesson stayed with her. When she was 16, her mother became sick. Not dramatically, not suddenly, just slowly. One missed shift became two, two became a week. Then came the bills, medicine, rent, food, debt. Elena got a job as a receptionist in a small business hotel. It was not glamorous. She wore the same black jacket every day. She smiled at guests who never looked at her face. She carried bags for people who spoke to her like she was furniture. But the hotel had one advantage. Rich people talked there, and they talked too much. Businessmen argued in the lobby, lawyers whispered near elevators, politicians drank in the bar, investors celebrated deals before they were announced. They thought Elena could not understand them. That was their first mistake. She listened. She learned names. She learned companies. She learned who hated whom, who was Desperate. Who was cheating? Who was pretending to be richer than he was? Who was afraid of losing everything? And slowly, Elena discovered a truth: the richer a person became, the more terrified they were of falling. Poor people feared hunger, rich people feared exposure. One night, a billionaire named Victor Hale arrived at the hotel. He owned luxury towers, media companies, and political connections. On television, he looked untouchable, tall, calm, powerful, but in the hotel lobby, Elena saw something different. His hands were shaking. He was angry, but not loudly angry, quietly angry, the kind of anger that comes from fear. He was waiting for someone. A young lawyer arrived 15 minutes later. They sat in the corner of the bar. Elena was behind the reception desk, pretending to check reservations. But she could hear pieces of the conversation: offshore account, documents, journalist, destroy it before Monday. Victor Hale was not powerful in that moment. He was trapped. The next morning, Elena found a folder left behind in the business lounge. Inside were copies of financial transfers, fake companies, political donations, and names of people who had accepted money from Victor Hale. She should have given it to the manager. She did not. She took it home. For the first time in her life, Elena held something worth more than cash. Information. She spent 3 nights reading every page. She did not fully understand all of it, but she understood enough. Victor Hale had built part of his empire on corruption. And if those papers became public, he would lose more than money. He would lose his image, his friends, his political protection, his control. Elena realized something powerful: a secret is not valuable because of what it says. It is valuable because of what someone will do to keep it hidden. She did not blackmail him immediately. That would have been stupid. Elena was poor, but she was not reckless. She waited, she watched, she collected more: a forgotten USB drive, a printed schedule, a voice recording from a conference room, a photo of a meeting that officially never happened. For 2 years, Elena built an archive, not just on Victor Hale, on everyone around him: bankers, judges, ministers, tech founders, media owners. The rich trusted each other in public, but in private, they betrayed each other constantly, and Elena collected the betrayals. She became a ghost in their world, not famous, not rich, not invited, but always near enough to hear. She changed jobs when necessary: hotel assistant, event coordinator, private club receptionist, executive secretary. Every position looked small, every position gave her access. While billionaires spent millions protecting their companies from hackers, they ignored the quiet woman standing beside the coffee machine. That was their second mistake. By the time Elena was 28, she had created what she called the Black Library. It was not stored in one place. It was divided across encrypted drives, hidden accounts, sealed envelopes, and trusted couriers who did not know what they carried. The Black Library contained evidence of insider trading, illegal payments, secret affairs, fake charities, tax crimes, political manipulation, and media cover-ups. It was not just dirt, it was a map of power. Elena could see how the world really worked: who funded which campaign, which journalist was paid to attack which company, which billionaire secretly owned which politician, which bank protected which criminal, which charity was just a beautiful mask for ugly money. And once she saw the map, she understood that rich people were not all powerful. They were connected, and anything connected can be controlled. Her first move was small. She sent an anonymous message to Victor Hale, not a threat, just one sentence: "I know what happened on March 17th, nothing else, no demand, no explanation, no signature." Victor Hale spent 3 days trying to find out who sent it. He failed. Then came the second message, a photo of one document. Then a third message, a meeting location. Victor arrived alone. He expected a man, maybe a journalist, maybe a rival businessman, maybe a hacker. Instead, he saw Elena, the receptionist. For a moment, he laughed, not because it was funny, because his mind could not accept the truth. This poor woman, this invisible woman, this nobody, had become the most dangerous person in his life. He said, "What do you want?" Elena looked at him calmly and said, "Nothing you cannot afford." Victor thought she wanted money. That was his third mistake. Elena did not ask for millions. She asked for access, a position in one of his foundations, a private office, a respectable title, a salary that looked normal on paper, and invitations to the rooms where decisions were made. Victor agreed, because men like Victor always believe they can control the person who threatens them. But Elena did not want to be his enemy. She wanted to be inside the machine, within 1 year. Elena was no longer invisible. She attended charity dinners where billionaires pretended to care about poverty. She entered private investment meetings where entire cities were discussed like products. She shook hands with politicians who smiled for cameras and panicked behind closed doors. She never spoke too much. That made people trust her. She never showed off. That made people underestimate her. She never asked stupid questions. That made powerful people believe she already knew the answers. Slowly, they began to invite her everywhere, not because they loved her, because Victor Hale trusted her, and if Victor Hale trusted someone, others assumed she must be useful. That was how power worked. One powerful person opened the door, the rest followed. Elena's control grew quietly. She did not command billionaires like a queen. She guided them like a shadow. A CEO wanted to buy a newspaper. Elena reminded him of a document she had seen. He changed his mind. A minister wanted to pass a law that would hurt thousands of workers. Elena arranged for one journalist to receive one anonymous file. The law disappeared. A banker wanted to destroy a rival company. Elena sent him a message: "Do not start a war you cannot survive." The banker stopped. People began to feel her presence before they knew her name. Deals failed without explanation. Campaigns changed direction overnight. CEOs resigned suddenly. Articles appeared at perfect moments. Stocks moved after secret conversations. The richest people on earth began asking the same question: who is behind this? The answer was always whispered, Elena, but Elena was not a hero. That is what made her story dangerous. She did not do everything for justice. At first, yes, she wanted revenge on the people who treated poverty like a personal failure. She remembered her mother cleaning their offices. She remembered businessmen ignoring her. She remembered rich men laughing about workers losing jobs. She wanted them to feel fear. But power changes people, even people who start with pain. Elena began to enjoy control. She told herself she was correcting the world, but sometimes, she was simply choosing winners and losers. One billionaire who funded hospitals was destroyed because he refused to obey her. Another billionaire who exploited workers survived because he gave her information. Elena became the thing she hated. A person who decided other people's lives from rooms they would never enter. The poor woman had beaten the rich, but she had also become part of their system. The turning point came when her mother died. Elena sat beside the hospital bed, holding the hand of the woman who had sacrificed everything for her. Her mother did not know the full truth. She only knew that Elena had become successful. Before she died, she said, "Do not become like the people who hurt us." That sentence broke something inside Elena, because deep down, she knew, she had already become like them, not in clothes, not in money, not in background, but in the one way that mattered. She had started to see people as tools. After the funeral, Elena disappeared for 3 weeks. No meetings, no messages, no calls. The world's most powerful people became nervous. Because when someone controls secrets, silence is never just silence, it is a warning. When Elena returned, she made her biggest move. She invited 12 of the richest and most influential people in the world to a private meeting in Switzerland. They came, not because they wanted to, because each of them had received a sealed envelope containing proof of one secret that could destroy them. The room was quiet, no cameras, no assistants, no bodyguards inside, just Elena and the people who believed they owned the world. Victor Hale was there, older now, less confident. One tech billionaire spoke first. "You cannot control all of us." Elena smiled, "I already have." Then she placed a document on the table. It was not a demand for money. It was not a political plan. It was a release agreement. If they signed it, they would transfer billions into independent public funds for housing, education, medical care, worker protection, and anti-corruption investigations. The money would be monitored publicly. No fake charities, no family foundations, no private control. If they refused, the Black Library would be released to journalists, prosecutors, and the public. One banker shouted that it was illegal. Elena looked at him and said, "So was half your fortune." No one spoke after that. One by one, they signed, not because they became good people, because fear made them generous. For 6 months, the world changed. Massive donations appeared from nowhere. Corrupt officials resigned. Housing projects were funded. Medical debts were erased. Investigations opened. Workers received compensation from companies that had denied wrongdoing for years. The media called it a miracle. The public called it justice. The rich called it blackmail. Elena called it balance. But balance built on fear is fragile, and fear always creates enemies. Victor Hale was the first to betray her. He had been waiting for years. He hired investigators, hackers, former intelligence officers, and private security firms, not to find Elena. He already knew her. He wanted to find the Black Library. He failed for a long time. But eventually, one courier made a mistake. One hidden server was located. One encrypted drive was copied. And suddenly, Elena's weapon was no longer completely hers. Victor did not release everything. He released only one part, the part that showed Elena had manipulated markets, threatened leaders, and destroyed people selectively. The world turned on her overnight. The same newspapers that once celebrated the mysterious wave of justice now called her a criminal mastermind. The same public that benefited from her actions began asking, who gave her the right, and that question was fair, because nobody had. Elena was arrested in a quiet apartment, no dramatic chase, no final speech, no gunfire, just two officers at the door and a woman who looked tired. At trial, the richest people in the world pretended to be victims. They wore expensive suits and spoke about law, ethics, and democracy. Elena listened silently. When it was her turn to speak, she stood up and said, "I was born in a world where the rich could destroy millions legally, and the poor were punished for surviving illegally. I did not create that world. I only learned its rules." The courtroom was silent. Then she continued, "But learning the rules does not excuse becoming cruel with them." That was the closest thing to an apology she ever gave. Elena was sentenced to prison. Victor Hale survived, but his empire never fully recovered. Several billionaires lost power. Some politicians resigned. Some companies collapsed. And parts of the Black Library were still released by unknown hands after her arrest. Nobody knows if Elena planned it. Maybe she did. Maybe someone else continued her work. Maybe the system had already been damaged too deeply to repair. But one thing became clear: the woman who had once been invisible had forced the world to look at what it wanted to hide. She did not defeat the rich by becoming richer. She defeated them by understanding their greatest weakness. They had money. They had lawyers. They had security. They had governments. They had media. But they also had secrets. And in a world built on image, the person who controls the truth controls the throne. Elena's story is not simple. She was not purely good. She was not purely evil. She was a product of a world where power hides behind respectability. And poverty is treated like shame. She began as a poor girl watching her mother clean the floors of powerful men. She became the woman those same men feared to see enter a room. And maybe the scariest part is not that Elena controlled the richest people on earth. The scariest part is how easy it was. Because the world was already corrupt. She only found the files. And when she opened them, the kings of money discovered that their crowns were made of paper. Final line for narration. In the end, Elena proved one thing: you do not need to own the world to control it. Sometimes, you only need to know what the world is hiding.